10 feet high. That's a big bear. That was a quote from Grizzly Man.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Awful Takes podcast. My name is Nabahi.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Sergata Productions.
And this is the show where we have very awful takes on music, movies, and all of that. So if you're joining us for the first time, how we structure the episodic shows is we talk about movie news that we find interesting, and then we jump into the review/recommendation. So if you're here just for that, please feel free to skip ahead. Timestamps will be in the description. First of all, welcome back, Wallied. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back and everything.
How'd your film shoot go?
It went great, honestly. It's everything I could have asked for and more. It was my first time writing and directing a short film passion project of mine. So it was my first time working with a small little crew and everything and an actress. Honestly, it was such a fantastic and fun learning experience for me. And it's something I honestly want to do more of in the future. I think I just have a passion now more for directing now that I have like a better idea of like what I want and how I want to direct certain things in the future. So I'm excited to do more of in the future.
Nice. So because Wallied missed out on last week and I had a few guests on, I didn't really jump into any movie news or anything like that. So we're going to be doing a little bit of catch up right now. So I guess, first of all, addressing the big elephant in the room with movie news. Out of nowhere, you just read headlines about something, and it's just like one of those moments where you're like, did that actually happen? And you kind of have to start second guessing. And then it was just a strange piece of movie news, especially because it was so recent that we were talking about this actress. Catherine O'Hara unfortunately passed away. And I remember reading that headline and I was just like, wait a minute, what? I had seen her, obviously, we recently reviewed Home Alone, and, you know, I just love her performance in both of those movies. I remember I mentioned in the review that she feels so genuine as like a mother, you know, and that's one of the rare things that when you watch in movies is like she had, you know, the multiple sides of being a mother, of being so angry and upset with your kid, but also loving and missing them dearly. You know, she just showed multiple different sides of that in such a great way. And then not to mention, I remember watching Schitt's Creek for a bit. She's amazing in that.
Nice. I got to check that show out.
Yeah. So hearing about her passing was just like a crazy moment of like, wait a minute, what? So yeah, it's very unfortunate to hear about. But yeah, I figured we'd mention it. I know, Wallied, you're a big fan and everything. So,
of course.
Yeah.
For me, honestly, Catherine O'Hara has been one of my favorites. I was really big into Tim Burton growing up, like especially in like middle and high school, and seeing her in movies like Beetlejuice really just took me by surprise, honestly. And she really just has this like sense of like theatricalness and over the top to her that I just really connected with a lot with her performances, especially in those ones. I mean, especially in Beetlejuice, she just really just kills it in that film for me, honestly. And she's one of those actresses like where I got more into film and animation, I didn't realize how many animated movies she had been in. Like she plays one of my favorite characters with Sally in The Nightmare Before Christmas. She does such a fantastic job with that, a role that I honestly couldn't even imagine anybody else doing that voice other than her. Yeah.
It was just so strange, obviously, just shortly after our review and everything, to know that this actress was no longer with us. Yeah, it was just very unfortunate. She has quite the resume and filmography. And it's one of those things that I think still her performances will be talked about for a long time, you know?
Yeah. And I hope she gets more recognition from some of her more underappreciated performances. So.
Yeah. So rest in peace, Catherine O'Hara. Thank you for your roles and everything. They were amazing. All right. Since we're playing a little bit of catch up, this is going to feel dated to some people, but we have to talk about it. The Oscar nominations came out.
Yeah.
And there are some surprises. So I guess I'll just talk about first category, obviously the big one, Best Picture.
Yeah.
Full 10 nominees this year.
I know, 10.
Which is kind of cool.
Nice.
But some of them
questionable, I guess. I'll be kind of honest though. I haven't seen most of them, but I would probably say I've seen like at least 4 of the nominations.
So we have Bugonia, we have F1, we have Frankenstein, we have Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Sinners, Train Dreams. One of the big surprises, obviously, for me is F1, but I think it's similar to like a Top Gun Maverick type situation.
Yeah. Which is funny because it's from the same filmmaker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they just kind of put in a lot more, into the campaign of getting it advertised and everything.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's probably what it is, honestly.
Yeah,
because I thought it was okay. Like obviously the racing sequences are fantastic, but everything besides that just doesn't really work for me. Like a lot of the drama and romance was just kind of Like there's a rivalry that I think is kind of interesting, but they don't do really much with it in the movie. So I was just kind of like, it's fine. It's a dad movie. So
there's definitely a few I want to check out. I've heard a lot about Train Dreams.
Same. I've heard Joel Edgerton's really good in it too. So
same with The Secret Agent. I know Wallied loves Begonia. I want to watch it, but just with the directors, it's not really.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. Yeah. And I'm actually really surprised this got Best Picture nomination because I was like, this is so like out there and weird. I don't know how much this could really appeal to a lot of people. So I wonder what about this movie like appealed to the Oscars.
Yeah, like seeing it go up and I was just like, oh, that's interesting. But I mean, maybe I'll check it out. I know for his last movie, I wasn't the biggest fan of it.
Kinds of Kindness or which one?
Kinds of Kindness was definitely hard for me to get through.
Yeah, I don't blame you there considering it's the anthology, so that's fair.
So jumping to some of the other ones, one of the surprises for me that I wanted to mention for actress in a leading role, you have Jessie Buckley in Hamnet. And you had Rose Byrne in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which was the surprise for me.
Yeah, I need to make time to check that out, honestly.
Kate Hudson in Song Sung Blue and Renee Rhines. I don't know. I just butchered that name. I'm so sorry.
You're good.
In Sentimental Value.
Okay.
And then Emma Stone in Begonia.
It's her golden girl right there.
But seeing Rose Byrne's name really, I was so happy. I was like, that's cool. Yeah. I was hoping for maybe like a Sally Hawkins in Bring Her Back, just because I really love that performance. But I'll still take this one. And then one of the other ones I wanted to mention for actresses as well. You have Elle Fanning in Sentimental Value. You have Inga Lias in Sentimental Value as well. Nice double nomination. You
got to check that movie out.
You have Amy Madigan in Weapons, which I thought was kind of cool.
That's awesome. Oh my God, her performance is terrifying in that movie.
I was like, that's awesome.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't give that a Best Picture nomination, Weapons.
I thought it might sneak in there, but when I saw Sinners, I was like, all right, that's probably.
They're like, okay, we can only put one horror movie in the Best Picture. Whatever.
Then you had Wunmi Mosaku in Sinners, and then you had Tiana Taylor in One Battle After Another. Now,
Tiana Taylor is my pick, though I will say she's not in the movie a lot. She's in it for like the first 30, 40 minutes, but I don't know. I was really impressed with her performance considering obviously she's like a music artist. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool to see an artist like that, like go into the acting world and just really just kind of blow me away with a performance like that.
I was a little upset. I'm going to be honest. I wanted Chase Infinity in One Battle After Another. I thought she did such a good job as the daughter. I mean, in our review, I just mentioned she's got to work against some of these high profile actors, and she has to hold her own and she does it so well. And she conveys a lot with saying very little, while I think Tiana Taylor's performance overall is pretty good. Maybe what it is I kind of like the subtleties more of Chase Infinity. And I was kind of upset not to see her name on there, honestly.
I was a little surprised by that, but I was like, I guess they're both supporting. So I'm like, which one do you pick? Yeah. It's kind of weird with that.
That's true. Those are overall some of the ones I wanted to mention. Obviously, you can check out the full listing and everything online.
Happy Conan is coming back to host too. Yes, I'll say that too.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Next bit of movie news is something I know I'm excited and dreading. It's kind of funny. It's like a culmination of parts of my childhood colliding. So growing up, me and my brother, we would at a bowling alley and a few other places, we would play this arcade game called House of the Dead. And it's basically just like a shooter game, and it progresses you through like a mansion. It's very just typical zombie game.
I think I remember seeing this like a long time ago at like an arcade place, and I was just too scared that I just never went anywhere near it.
Me and my brother tried so hard to beat it. One time we were really close. I think we were like towards the tail end and everything. And we've always mentioned that we would like to go to an arcade and try to beat it. Basically, a movie's getting made about House of the Dead. All right, I'm kind of interested. And then the news comes out. Isabella Merced is going to be attached to this film. I was
nice.
Like, cool.
She's great.
And then the collision of my childhood is happening right before my eyes when I see who's directing this movie. Paul W.S. Anderson, very famously from Alien vs. Predator.
The real Paul Anderson.
One of my personal favorite movies growing up. Again, I don't think it's good. You're not going to hear me defend this movie in any way, but
it's okay. Don't be shy about it.
It's one of my favorites. I'll say that. He is directing House of the Dead. So my love of his movies growing up colliding with one of my favorite kind of franchises is very interesting. And then obviously you throw Isabella Merced, who's becoming more and more in the mainstream and everything.
Which
obviously
is great,
last year she had a lot of great roles in Last of Us and then now Superman. So pretty cool. Although I just wouldn't have picked Paul W.S. Anderson. I don't know why he's still getting work.
Someone out there is just like, oh my God, Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah.
Yes, I will finance your project. No, you know what I think it is? It's Mila Jovovich, man. That's it. It's funny because I saw his movie last year in The Lost Lands with Dave Bautista, and it's literally like his version of like a Zack Snyder movie. It's super like stylized. You have this like awful like slow motion sequences, and you have like the most convoluted story where Dave Bautista is some kind of like shape-shifting animal or something, and Mila Jovovich is also in it too.
Dang.
Yeah, it's wild. It's quite the trip of a movie.
So I wouldn't have picked him if I'm just being honest. My personal opinion.
Who would you pick?
For House of the Dead, I probably would have picked someone very over the top. Maybe like a Sam Raimi, you know?
Okay.
Do something just totally out there, just have fun with it. Paul W.S. Anderson really just lowers the bar for me. Like already, the bar wasn't that high, but you found a way to lower it even more.
Now it's like -1.
And it's kind of funny because, all right, I might go see it just for fun. Maybe my brother might want to go, and then
you can make it a family fun trip.
And we can kind of relive this whole thing. Again, House of the Dead it's a very straightforward shooter game. There's no crazy narrative through it. Like it's super over the top. I'm not saying this is like one of the best video games ever made, but my nostalgia for it, is what excites me about this project.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, that's a piece of news that I guess we'll start seeing more and more of as the year goes on.
Okay.
All right.
Whatever.
Another last bit of movie news that was very big.
All right. What do we got?
Bob Iger, CEO of Walt Disney, is retiring. He tried it once before and it didn't work out. His replacement was not the greatest and had a lot of issues with the company that the board decided to get rid of him. And thus Bob Iger came back. Okay. When he came back, he was very adamant that this isn't going to be permanent. The quest to still find another replacement is going to happen at some point. So it's been about 3-ish years, I believe, since Bob Iger came back. But now it's announced that at the end of March, he will be done with the company and we'll have a new CEO. It's interesting in some way just to know that the plan has obviously been there for a while. It didn't work one way, so now they're going to retry it with this new guy. And this guy is a longtime worker at Disney. His name is Josh D'Amaro, and he's around like 50-ish years old. Obviously has quite the resume over there. And apparently the board, he pretty much unanimously agreed that this guy is going to be their replacement. So obviously I'm hoping for good things. I've heard a lot that this guy really loves the company that he works for. He is one of those people that puts in the effort and everything.
Oh, nice.
So it's going to be interesting to see, because I know when Bob Chapek came in, he really changed a lot of things that were going on at the studio, created new levels of supervision and things. Like, it's very famously known that Kevin Feige had like a new boss he had to report to, and obviously being the president of Marvel, he was kind of restricted on his own creative control and was mandated to do Disney Plus shows, was mandated to do spin-offs and things like that. Mandated to keep movies under a certain runtime. You know, I believe that's a big reason why Thor: Love and Thunder ended up very kind of on the chopping block in a way.
Yeah, that makes more sense now. Okay.
So it's going to be interesting to see this new CEO. Is he going to restrict creative control from these people? That's what I'm interested about.
I hope not.
Yeah. And I really want to see just less of that. You know, I feel like these places are getting set up now for a big return. Like, obviously Marvel's doing a lot of interesting stuff now. Star Wars had their replacement and their president. So some of their flagship franchises, I feel like, are gearing up for some big moments. But if a CEO comes in and changes everything, that could mean totally different plans and things that everyone was originally anticipating.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could definitely go two ways. It could either be really exciting, and it could be like, all right, we're going to actually get better quality films and shows. Or it could also go the other way, other extreme of like, okay, it's maybe wasn't the best choice or something like that. But if they honestly think like he's a good choice, then I have a little bit of faith that this could probably work.
And I think it was a big learning moment for them when it didn't go right the last time. So maybe now things will be given more care when making this selection. So hopefully we see. Obviously, the end of March is going to come fast, and we'll see the implementations of his reign as CEO, I guess.
For sure.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to watch.
All right.
All right, Wallied, what are we talking about today?
Okay, so we are talking about our very first documentary on the podcast. I recommended a film called Grizzly Man by Werner Herzog. I'll just say right now, if you haven't seen this movie or documentary, I'd really just recommend you guys to go and watch it, because the plot I'm about to explain right now is so insane. You probably wouldn't believe me if I told you what this is about. So I'd recommend you guys to go kind of check it out. Even if you're not into documentaries, I'd just say give this a chance, and then maybe come back to this discussion. So the film is about a man named Timothy Treadwell, who basically really loves grizzly bears a lot. So much so that he goes to a specific preservation in Alaska where he will spend 2 months there with grizzly bears, and he will get, it's just him and his camera, and he gets extremely close to grizzly bears. Maybe a little too close to a point where a grizzly bear could probably bite his hand off or something. And so basically what happens is, and this is all in the beginning, is him and his girlfriend end up getting killed by one of these bears. And so the whole documentary is about just Timothy Treadwell as a person, the people that knew him, the people that didn't really know him. And you kind of learn more about this guy and his history, and you learn also about grizzly bears too. And so my introduction to this movie, if I remember correctly, I think was through, like Reddit or something. I think I was trying to look for like documentary recommendations, and this was one I heard about, and I was like, okay, the title sounds kind of interesting. I didn't know much about it. And so the first time watching it was just quite an eye-opening experience. It was like, I just couldn't even believe the story was real. It just feels kind of made up, honestly. Rewatching it and everything, I think this actually probably hit a lot harder for me emotionally and personally. I'll get into some of the moments that really like hit hard emotionally and really just connected with me a lot more on a rewatch, whether it's more like anger, blood boiling, or like more just kind of sadder moments, or more like bizarrely comedic sense of relief moments. And funny enough, Werner Herzog is actually somebody I had discovered. You're gonna probably laugh about. He was actually through The Mandalorian, believe it or not.
Me too.
Yeah, and that was kind of
perfect casting for like an evil person,
right? Yeah, exactly. And I won't dive too into it, but Werner Herzog is like one of the most fascinating filmmakers ever. I could probably spend like another 30 minutes talking about this guy's history and everything, but yeah, he's also known as being a documentary filmmaker. And actually, when I was looking into it after I saw it for the first time, this is actually like, I believe, his most popular documentary, actually. So I'm excited to get into it and kind of talk about some of the moments that really are just insane. And just, I'm like, how do you even think to kind of like come up with something like that? Or how do you think to even showcase this information? So Nabahi, I know you hadn't seen it or heard of it or anything. So I guess what was your overall thought process and I guess like experience with Grizzly Man?
Yeah. So first of all, Werner Herzog is, I've obviously seen him on The Mandalorian and stuff. And then funny enough, I didn't make the full connection. Well, actually I did right when the movie started. Conan O'Brien, I'm a big fan of his. He has this travel show that he's been doing on HBO Max.
Nice.
And he got Werner Herzog to narrate that travel documentary show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
It's kind of funny. He narrates that in such a funny way and everything, like basically just, trashing Conan and stuff, and he's being like this strange comedic guy, and he narrates that. So then obviously when this movie started and the narration started, I was just like kind of laughing. I was like, oh my God. But obviously the subject material, it kind of goes in a bunch of different ways. So with this in general, I have heard of this story.
Oh, really?
But I didn't pinpoint everything until probably about halfway through that I actually kind of already had heard about this. A lot of YouTubers and things I follow are like probably the pretty gruesome stuff of like the last footage of known people who have died or, something like that.
Oh, yeah,
those type of situations. And the YouTuber talked about this incident of there is audio that exists of these people, and they were attacked by like a grizzly, and it goes on for like 6 minutes or something, and you hear the passing of these two individuals. And then I started putting two and two together, and obviously I had seen that clip of Werner reacting to this audio and everything. So about halfway through, I started to recollect, okay, I have heard of this, but I didn't exactly know there was like a documentary movie, things like that. So it was kind of interesting to watch this without knowing much, and I think that's where it's interesting after watching this, going online and seeing the different reactions. Like, so I had heard about this and everything.
So you said people thought this was hilarious.
Yeah, like people thought this was like, some people I follow are like, oh, this movie, it's so funny. Like the way it's edited, you could tell that Werner doesn't really, he thinks that this guy is just crazy. He's out of his mind and everything,
Yeah.
Which I can kind of see a bunch of different viewpoints with this movie. But I guess my viewpoint is obviously, I feel like this guy is just very mentally unstable. I feel like,
yeah, no, it's so obvious.
I feel like he has, some type of issue mentally, but rather than find help and things like that, he probably sought out this own kind of self remedy of going out into these forests and everything, and these locations of these grizzlies, and really thinking that he can, develop some kind of bond and relationship with them.
It's a bizarre outlet for sure, but I'm surprised it's like, okay, I guess everybody kind of has their own certain kind of outlet with this. But one thing I think really surprised me, and I think something that really resonated with me on a second rewatch, is I was surprised how sympathetic and respectful this movie was. Because, you know, obviously I think if it was any other different documentary filmmaker, I think they'd probably be a little bit more like exploitative, maybe more showcasing like the audio footage, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like that scene where Werner is listening to the audio, you know, and he's trying to like hold back tears, and you just see like the ex-girlfriend's reaction really got to me emotionally, you know, and it's like, this is like the last of Timothy that like they could find and everything, you know, and it's like, it's a really heartbreaking moment of just seeing somebody who obviously is so passionate about the thing they love pretty much dying for the thing that they love. If that makes sense. But, and then just hearing Werner tell the ex-girlfriend, like, don't ever listen to this, you know, like destroy it. Like that was something that really took me by surprise and made me really connect with this more. And it maybe, I think for me, showcased more like a humble, more like just like an outsider sympathetic perspective of Timothy.
And I think that's one of the great things with this movie is this documentarian doesn't choose to really inject himself into it that much, you know?
Yeah.
Like even that scene, which features him.
It's the only scene that features him too, actually.
Filming this girl's reaction to it. And he doesn't really make the moment about him almost. He hears it and everything and he's describing it, but he's also like thinking about this other person in the room, you know? Yeah. His sole focus is on this person of like, don't listen to this. Don't even try. Don't look at photos that I've seen, you know, of the remains and everything. So yeah, even in a lot of this, he injects his own viewpoint at certain moments, but he does it in a very delicate way of like, here's my subject matter, but here's how I feel about it. And it's very brief. But then he chooses to kind of refocus on this subject matter, you know, of this guy.
Which is really awesome. And I appreciate that, you know, because I think if it were to go like that, like you kind of mentioned, where he's injecting himself and his opinion a little bit more into it, I would have had a little bit more of a harder time watching this. And that's the
thing, like my own conclusion with this movie of seeing this mentally ill guy, and you know, that's obviously my conclusion. That's never really mentioned, you know, it's things like that aren't really mentioned of this guy could possibly be mentally ill, you know, something that that Werner doesn't really bring up, you know. And I think in that it is maybe more respectable, more of a kind of blank slate. I'm showing you the subject matter and you can choose to whatever you want to think about it, you know, you can choose.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think as the documentary goes along, like I love just the moments where it's just him and the camera, you know, it's just like you see footage of him and it's like, it feels like you're a fly on the wall. Like it feels like you're there with him, honestly. Like one of my favorite moments in this is like where he's trying to like get the hat. Timothy is trying to get the hat back. The fox stole it. It's literally, it was like probably one of the most anxiety inducing scenes. I felt so tense and on the edge of my seat where he's like chasing this fox, and it's like obviously it shows it like a first POV with him and his camera. He's like running there as fast as he can, and literally it just stays on like the shot of like the fox's den. And I remember when I first saw it, I honestly thought that fox was like gonna come out and like bite him or something. That just freaked me out so much. And I think that's how I feel with a lot of the footage in this movie is like, I'm honestly kind of scared for this guy at certain points. Like there's a moment where he's next to this bear. He calls it the Grinch bear. He's like in like the kind of like lake area, you know, where the bears go to get their salmon and everything. And he gets so close to this bear. I think there's like a moment where he looks at the bear and he's like, just like, I don't know if he like smacks its nose or something, but I was honestly like, okay, I hope that bear doesn't like maul you, bud.
There is so many, there's so much footage like that in this movie of just like, you know, he's fine, you know, he's alive after, but it's still just like watching, like he's on like a river and there's so many shots like this. He's in the foreground, bears in the background. bear like looks at him and like starts coming towards him or something like that.
I swear some of those bears are giving him like a death stare.
Yeah,
they have to be.
I'm just like, this is insane. And this guy just commits to it, you know, at some point, you know, even like the toughest people, if a bear is approaching, the closer he gets, more than likely someone might just break down and be like,
I gotta
what
run
am I
away.
doing? Yeah, running, whatever. So many times these bears will come close to him and he doesn't even react, or he just tells them to stop. And it's like playful, and he's just like, oh, he sees these things as like pets or
he says it in such a calm demeanor, which really like surprised me. Or there's like this moment, it's one of my favorite moments in the movie is where obviously Werner's interviewing this like guy who owns like the museum, or he like curates the museum, and he talks about this moment that I think really like showcased for me of like, this is not something you should ever mess with. Yeah. He talks about how there is an invisible boundary that you don't cross between humans and animals. He talks about like how his beliefs of like how for 7,000 years, like animals and humans are not meant to cross over with each other. Like animals avoid the humans and humans avoid animals, you know, and they kind of live in that somewhat peace and harmony. Yeah. But if you cross that invisible boundary, you're kind of bound to break kind of the rules of like Mother Nature. I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit with that. Yeah. And as he's talking about this, you see this scene of Timothy in like the river with this bear literally like right next to him. And it's just like this really, I guess for me, it really just put me in like this kind of eerie, disturbing state for me personally. Yeah.
There's a lot of scenes like that where it's like, it's crazy what this guy's achieving. And he's obviously doing all this and getting this kind of groundbreaking footage of these bears up close and everything. And not only that, he's interacting with them. And just to know how it ends is also, it is eerie. And there's multiple moments in this movie where I'm just like, what is this guy doing? You know, like the delusion here is just like, for me, I mean, that's just kind of what I think of it. I'm just like, this guy thinks he's reaching some kind of common ground, and maybe he is. Okay, maybe that's the case.
I guess to an extent, but again, like one of the things I think that the museum guy brings up so incredibly well is like, no, he's not really doing that because these bears are getting more comfortable with him, you know, because obviously, you know, they see humans as like, you know, like a danger, you know, and he's kind of showcasing like, oh, this is a comfort. And I think that's one thing bears probably can't understand a lot of the time. And that's one thing he mentions is that can confuse a bear like really badly, you know? Yeah. So if anything, he's probably doing more harm than good.
That's also true. And I do like how this movie has all those different viewpoints. Like it has the view of him. It has the view of other people around him who think he was doing great work and everything.
Yeah, especially with like the ex-girlfriend or maybe obviously the friend they reveal like on the last like 10 minutes of the movie for sure. And I think that was one thing too I really loved was just the interviews throughout this movie that are really fantastic. Obviously, you know, you see certain documentaries, you kind of know like the interview look that they have. Yeah. This definitely has a much more different look, surprisingly. It feels like kind of cinematic at certain points. And I love just the way they tell the stories. You know, it really feels like they're telling you the story personally.
And again, with the footage that this guy achieves, it creates a lot of great things to call back to. And I really like that Werner had the choice of letting a lot of this footage kind of play out. It doesn't feel like overly edited. He's not narrating over everything that happens. Sometimes he'll let clips just fully play out for you to kind of just take in on your own.
The bear fight scene, honestly.
That was insane.
Yeah. The bear literally takes a dump as the fight's going on. I'm like, what the
And seeing these two powerhouse of animals just go at it is just like,
it's kind of a little hard to watch for me personally, honestly.
Yeah. And it really reminds the audience, and it also reminds him. And that was kind of the interesting thing too for me is they showed that, he thinks everything is peaceful. The animals and humans can coexist. Everything's going to be fine. Yeah. But then he kind of has these real moments of seeing what a bear did to like a cub, and it's like mauled and left. Or you see like a skull on the river, and he's like, couple days ago there was this whole bear here and now it's gone. You know, the bears are eating each other because they don't have food,
which is a really scary thought to think about, honestly.
And it really, you can tell it messes with this guy's mindset of everything's all happy and everything's fine, and you know, like nature, ultimate
nature does its course.
Yeah, and Werner mentions it very eloquently of like nature is violent, you know.
Yeah,
and you have to always be in reminder of that, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is great. I mean, like I said, I'm really glad that this documentary shows a lot of the different aspects of that. You know, it shows so many different sides. It just feels very unbiased, at least to me.
No, honestly, I agree. It is very unbiased for the most part. There's maybe like little moments where maybe like Werner's like, yeah, this is probably not the best idea to do it, like more in the second half. But yeah, for the most part, I would say it's mostly unbiased. And like I said, it's more from like an outside perspective to somebody who doesn't really know about the story. Because I know when I first saw the movie, I didn't know much about it. And I felt like Werner Herzog, and I felt like, you know, as the movie was going along, it's like I was learning more about this story and more about bears and how they kind of act and their behavior and everything.
One of the most effective moments for me, it is kind of the lead up to this whole audio thing that we had mentioned, but seeing the coroner describe how this mauling kind of probably happened and everything, and just hearing his description, it goes on for a couple minutes, and just seeing his reaction to everything and the way he describes it honestly was getting under my skin. And I was like, this is just this guy telling what he thinks happened, and the way he describes it and everything. I was just like,
it puts like a really disturbing image in your head for sure. I know it definitely did for me. Honestly, it's like, I don't even want to imagine how that audio sounds, considering the way he's explaining everything, you know, and giving his like little theory on like what actually went down.
Yeah. And he describes, you know, what he saw with the body and everything, parts that were ripped, you know, things like that. And I'm just like,
or even that disturbing image you see of like the bear, like getting killed and everything after, you know, and he talks about how there was like clothes and remains in like the bear's stomach. It's like, oh God.
Yeah. It's just a crazy incident that took place, and you know, so many people were probably like, in the beginning there were people that mentioned like, you know, they pretty much knew at some point something was going to happen. Like this guy was really rolling the dice and everything. One of the things that taught me that I didn't put two and two together is like, close to winter, these things become more desperate, you know, if they haven't eaten enough, if they haven't stored enough food and stuff like that. Desperation.
And I'm not really surprised, because obviously they're so hungry and everything, and they're just at their last resort at that point.
And seeing the footage that they have of what they presume is the bear that killed Timothy, just showing like them filming this bear, and they're very close to it and everything, and this bear just, I don't know, just seeing that thing, and obviously it's a force of nature, and just seeing that up close, knowing that this bear waited over a course of time of like, he's not finding food, he's not finding, you know, what he needs to survive, to eventually then, all right, well, these two people are here, you know. I've been kind of waiting around them for a couple of days, you know. I'm just like, oh my God, like that's like super disturbing. Again, like you're not shown anything. You don't get to listen to the audio, but it's the implication of what happened and seeing this bear and everything. It's really unnerving watching that.
I think for me, that the lead up with that, where you see the bear looking at Timothy and his girlfriend, is like, it's like just the dread and tension that's there before obviously the big storm. But I think what makes this, for me, I think what makes it tragic is that it's probably the only time I think he's ever brought somebody with him, because obviously throughout, you know, he's alone, he's by himself, but this is like one of the only times he actually brought like his girlfriend with him. And I think that's what makes it more tragic, is that like this poor girl ended up like losing her life because of it, you know, so he ended up like basically risking someone's life to go and see these bears, you know, and it's like you see that impact, and now not only like him and the people around him, but now probably I can imagine like her family and everything, you know.
And it portrays Like, again, for Timothy to do this and everything with this girl, he's obviously portraying that he knows more than he actually does, you know? And it's like, again, for someone, all these bear experts and everything to say quite the opposite really kind of paints the scene of this girl was falsely kind of brought into this. Granted, she's an adult. She could have left at any time, but I guarantee Timothy's was portraying a sense of, I know it. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. When in actuality, it's like,
no, you don't.
You're playing with nature, because not only that, you're staying long past when you should have left. You know, like there's this whole story of him going to the airport, gets mad at this lady there, says these offhanded remarks that are, you know, horrible, says it to this lady, and his first instinct is
so
to go
baffling.
Is to go back to this grizzly maze, you know? And right there, it's like, you already should have left, and here you are staying, and you brought this other girl with you now. And these bears are getting more and more desperate. So yeah, it's just like, why would he do that? You know, at the very least, you know, you're leaving the airport or whatever, tell this girl, like,
hey, you know, I'm going to go by myself or something.
I'm putting myself in extreme danger, because he mentions that at multiple points in the documentary of like, the more and more I stay here, the more dangerous it gets, you know?
Right. It's
just, so I don't know.
And it's just so sad and everything. But there's a line Werner says that I really just like, for me, put it into full perspective of like what I kind of feel like this movie's going for. So he says, the actor in his film has taken over from the filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And I think that so perfectly encapsulates what he basically, the person that he's like pretending to be, like this wild, like crazy grizzly bear guy. He basically became that person, and that's what I think eventually ended up killing him, was because he just got so into his head. He got super egotistical. I mean, you even see the moment when he's like, F you, wild preservation and everything, and he goes on this long rant and tangent about how there should be people allowed to be there and everything, and it's like, but do you not understand that these bears are not like peaceful animals? Like, I understand, like, obviously there's a little bit of a piece to them, but these are violent animals. These are literally, like, if you see them in the wrong way, they could literally like kill you.
And the power behind these animals is just something not to mess with. Like, sure, that multiple moments in this documentary, they're not portraying any crazy threat or anything like that, but to know that in a brief instinct, these things can switch and just destroy you in like a second. It's just like, all right, you are not treating this with the amount of respect and care that should be, you know? I think there's a very, like, granted, you see thrill seekers online, you know, or you see different
Bear Grylls or whatever,
Bear Grylls or, you know, situations like that. But there's always moments where they're like,
all right, I got to stop.
Like, you should never do this. No one should ever do this. Also, seeing like an animal or something, there's a care and there's a respect there of like, not to mess around with this, you know, like even the most knowledgeable people would expect something like that of, hey, this could go wrong, you know, like it's a gamble anytime they go around these animals, you know, because of course, for all you know, they could be having just a different mentality that day, or like in the documentary, these animals could become more desperate. And in that, you know, if an animal needs food and everything, what are they going to do to survive? You know, is
those survival instincts are going to kick in real quick.
And is there respect for you, or this, you know, thing that you try to portray is there? Is that really going to hold when this animal is on a life or death?
It's like non-existent at that point. And one of the things that I think really broke my heart a little bit is like obviously they interview his parents and everything, and it's like, you got to see that like he almost had like a really good life before this whole Grizzly situation. It's like you see like a footage of him being like a diver and everything, and you see how like he had like a scholarship, and then of course like an injury ended up like pretty much preventing him from diving, and he obviously lost his scholarship. And it's like that to me is so interesting of how somebody's life could be changed so quickly through like an injury or something, like a big impact like that. You know, that was something that really shocked me with the story, and it's not something I expected like with Timothy. But I also at the same time, I'm like, that kind of thrill-seeking like side of him is like always kind of somewhat been there. And it's like one thing I think the dad mentions that I think is so interesting is like he's like, yeah, he was hanging out with the wrong people, he was smoking weed and everything, and it's like it's kind of clear he before the Grizzly thing, he was kind of using drugs as like an outlet, which made it, I think, honestly, really sad.
Yeah, one of the things they mentioned is that he has this moment in his life, and it's just like a downward spiral after that moment, you know?
Yeah.
And in my day-to-day life, you know, I hear about people or even my own friends or something having those moments and them processing it in their way, you know, but for this guy, the downward spiral kind of culminated in this whole Grizzly phenomenon thing that he thinks he was tapping into, which ultimately was, in my opinion, kind of delusion, you know? He should have had those moments of clarity of taking a step back and being like, all right, you know, it's one thing to come up close to these animals, get these amazing shots and everything in this footage. But at the end of the day, like we mentioned, if this bear needs to, it won't waste a second, you know, turning on him. That's another fascinating thing with this documentary as well, is you really are kind of seeing this downward spiral throughout this movie, and he becomes more and more, you know, upset with everything. But then also he becomes more kind of egotistical of like, he's been so close to these animals for so long. In his head, he's probably like, nothing's going to happen. You know, I know these things better than anyone. I'm the one who's here close to all these things. No one else is here. No one else can tell me, you know, these experts, these bear experts or whatever, no one can tell me how I should be doing this, because in his head, he's like, I'm the only one who's done it, you know, and that just inflates the ego, and all these mistakes start to happen and all these bad choices and everything. And, you know, it just leads to his own demise. So it's very interesting to kind of think of it in that context as well, of like, you are watching someone's downward spiral. Other people, it might be alcohol, it might be this. This guy was just
Grizzly
something
bears.
different. Which is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, for sure, honestly. And I think for me, the ending was really bittersweet.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know, seeing obviously, you know, his ex-girlfriend and seeing his friends, and obviously the pilot from the beginning. It was nice to see them all like come together with Werner, and they're basically just like paying tribute to him. You know, they spread his ashes. He has a little bit, they put like a little bit of bear fur in the ashes, which was kind of funny, you know, and they just kind of throw it out, and it's just like, you see how much of like a somewhat impact like Timothy has had on these people, but you also kind of see like how much like this guy meant to like certain people, you know, even with his kind of weirdness and like his kind of just strange ego. It's just strange inflated ego, you know. It's just like, it's still, I don't know. It's still just kind of interesting to see that, you know. It's like, these people still have like a respect for him even after everything that they just went through, you know, with him and everything. I think that's just kind of interesting, honestly.
Puts into context a lot of other, you know, online thrill seekers and things like that. Like people who put themselves in just those extremely dangerous situations.
Yeah.
And all it takes is that one wrong moment, you know, for us to look back on their life in our own personal way, you know. That's something that's fascinating with this documentary, is it's so documented, this guy's life and everything, and all the footage that he had and shot, that yes, now that this moment went wrong and we see the outcome of it, we kind of look from this objective point of view of, he was gambling. You know, he was messing around with things he shouldn't have been. But on the other hand, what happens if that incident didn't happen? How would we be looking at this guy? You know,
Right? Yeah.
that's just to me very, very fascinating. And obviously, I think about that with, like, I see people online like that guy who climbs skyscrapers without ropes or something, you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he does it for multiple buildings and everything. And obviously it's like this super thrilling moment, and they were live streaming it and whatever. But it's like, what happens if that goes wrong? What happens, you know, how are we going to look at this guy? Is he going to be seen as this,
I feel like it'd be a mixed reaction, honestly.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things with this documentary that, like I mentioned, it's just like we saw it go wrong. So here we are kind of putting our own spin and thinking about, you know, his whole life up until then, you know, really gambling with his life year after year, going into this Grizzly Maze and everything. And yeah.
Yeah, that's a scary title too, by the way, Grizzly Maze.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Would not want to be there. But I would say like that final shot of him like walking, I almost kind of see it as like he's happy in the afterlife. He gets to spend all the time now with the grizzly bears in heaven or wherever he is, hell, whatever. I guess that's kind of how I at least kind of took that ending, is like he's happy somewhere else now. And it's like now he's kind of leaving this somewhat mark on that he had being with grizzly bears, and just died for something that he was passionate about, even though I would not ever be okay with anyone doing this. You know, it's like, that's kind of like interesting to showcase bears in a kind of interesting kind of habitat. You know, one thing Werner I think mentions too really well is like, he mentions how like when he's not behind the camera, or it's just like the shots of the grizzly bears, it's like there's this sense of like peaceful, there's this sense of like peace, there's this sense of like beauty to be found in the stuff that doesn't have Timothy in it. And I thought that's kind of like an interesting way to look at like how we view nature and everything, is like, even with nature being as dangerous as it is, it can also be beautiful too at the same time.
Overall, like this thing has like just an amazing viewpoint on this story and the subject matter. And there's just so many different moments that you just kind of stick with you. I remember after I watched it, I was just like, wow, this thing was put together in a very great way, you know?
Yeah, same.
And obviously seeing this guy who thinks these bears and everything are these, you know, misunderstood creatures and everything. And honestly, that probably parallels what he thinks people think about him, you know?
Yeah,
it's
right.
like he's this misunderstood person and everything. And
I mean, even that tangent he goes on about like why nobody wants to date him too. And he's like, oh, I should have been gay instead or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, bud.
Yeah, and seeing like, the mental instability behind this guy, it is somewhat tragic, you know? It's like, I wonder what this guy would have done had he seen or seeked out, you know, mental help and everything.
Or if he was still alive, you know, or he didn't end up going back, you know.
It would be very, very fascinating. But overall, this documentary is just, it's great. I think it does such a great job of just being unbiased, not really much interjection or manipulative in any way. At least to me, it didn't. And it kind of let me to kind of formulate my own opinion, you know, and I think that's ultimately what happened for a lot of people. Because like I said, going online and seeing,
it's a divisive discussion for sure. And this guy's a very just mixed person in general.
There's so many people who have their own opinion. And they kind of paint that really well with some of the other, you know, interviewees in this, like we mentioned with the pilot, with his ex-girlfriends, with bear experts, with so many different people, you know, that's just like.
And I think that's a great way to showcase the documentary, because now you're getting all different perspectives, and it's like now it helps for you to be able to like figure out like how do you feel like about this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. For me, this on a rewatch, this really hit a lot more harder for me emotionally and personally. This is just such a fascinating character study, and it's a fascinating way to look at nature and look at animals that I haven't really seen a lot of people like Timothy do this often, especially risking their lives to go and see these grizzly bears, you know. And obviously I don't think you should ever do this, even if you're a bear expert, quote unquote. For me, I really loved the interviews throughout the film. I loved Werner's light narration throughout. It honestly, for me, felt like Werner was there with me personally, telling me the story. I loved a lot of the nature footage that they showed throughout. It really gives you a better idea of like Timothy as a person and the grizzly bears that he was obviously analyzing. And I love that the film really goes by very fast. I like that you just get so invested in the story quickly. Like that was not something I expected rewatching this, but man, I was really just like, I couldn't even keep my eyes off the screen, honestly, for the whole time. And yeah, I really love and appreciate how sympathetic and again, respectful it is towards the subject matter and towards like everything going on. That was something that I really made me love the documentary even more on a rewatch. So yeah, I guess I'll just say my only complaint that I could really think of was like, I do maybe wish they tease it a little bit in the beginning with like Timothy Treadwell not teaching, but you know, he goes to like different schools and he talks about like his experience with the bears and everything. I would have liked to maybe know a little bit more about that, just because honestly that is kind of interesting to maybe hear like what the students and teachers maybe thought of it. And I'm kind of hoping that Timothy wasn't telling these kids to go near grizzly bears, honestly.
Yeah.
And then just like there's like this one moment where he's like touching the poop that I was like, oh, I don't that was weird. I don't like that.
Yeah.
He's all it's still warm right here. He's all touching the poop and everything. And he gives us like excuse for like why he was touching the bear poop.
Crazy.
But yeah, other than that, that's really my only two minor complaints with it. But other than that, I really love this documentary a lot. This is definitely like one of my favorites that I've seen. I guess score-wise for me, I'd probably say I'm at like a 9 out of 10 personally. I really love this a lot. I'll happily watch this again. I'd definitely recommend this to more people for anyone interested in this story. So yeah.
Overall, this is a very well-made documentary. The subject matter is one of those things where it's just like you hear about it and it's like, why would this guy do that?
Right. Yeah.
And watching how this thing kind of plays out and seeing all these different interviews really leaves you with the feeling of like, how am I supposed to feel? You know? And that was one of my things. Like, you know, I was like, I think this guy was kind of delusional and he had mental issues, but then I'm like, am I allowed to think that way? You know?
Yeah.
But I think that's why this thing is so well made is I don't feel like I was really made to feel a specific way.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of up for you to decide, honestly, which I love.
And you really get to see someone at a point in time, you know, do something that no one else had done. Mm-hmm. And it's like in achieving something that, you know, is what by most people considered impossible, how can someone kind of manipulate that? You know, what can they do after that moment? Like you mentioned with the kids and stuff, it's like he's allowed to go to these schools and talk about it because he's kind of one of the only people who has done it. You know?
And I think what made me respect it a little bit more is that he never took a fee or anything. He was just more doing it because he was passionate about it, you know? So that's why I'm also like, okay, this guy's kind of an awful person, but he's also kind of like, I learned a lot about grizzly bears kind of a little bit through him too. Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's just very strange.
Very strange. But yeah, overall, this is a fascinating choice for like a documentary.
And it's a great choice for a documentary too, honestly.
And I think I'm glad the team behind this was respectful of the subject matter, you know, because everyone can have their own opinion about this. And I'm glad that they chose to kind of portray this in, you know, that unbiased kind of way and be respectful towards, you know, all the evidence and everything. Like, it's one thing, like, they could have easily shown you the photos of the coroner's office. They could have easily showed you
the audio footage. Yeah.
They could have paid for all of that and you know, marketed like we have it, you know. We have the footage, the unseen footage or whatever, you know. And I'm really glad that in this you see Werner's reaction, and he's first thing that comes to mind is don't show this to anyone. Just get rid of it, you know?
that really kind of shows you where his headspace is with this, if he's saying something like that.
Exactly. And yeah, the narration overall is great and everything. So overall, I'm probably at the same, like a 9 out of 10. Nice. Really recommend it if you guys haven't seen it. Maybe you've heard about this story. I mean, definitely check it out if you haven't. And it's quite the watch. Yeah,
it really is. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it. I had no idea how you were going to feel with this. So.
Yeah. When we first talked about movies of, this genre and everything, one of the first movies that came to mind is going to be this recommendation. This was kind of one of the movies that I associate very young of getting into like different films, foreign films, things like that.
Ooh.
And I remember seeing this in theaters, which is kind of insane. I don't know if anyone, obviously I think this movie has a following and everything, but I don't know if anyone on this podcast is interested in this, but it's one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
It is Iron Monkey, came out in 1993. It is a martial arts movie.
Nice.
When we first talked about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, this movie immediately came to mind for me. This movie has amazing choreography and everything, and I actually haven't rewatched it in a while, so it'll be kind of cool to go back and see movies of that time period, and seeing all that was put into these type of martial arts and everything. And this actually was my introduction to Donnie Yen. He's one of my favorite action martial arts guys. And he just commits so much to his roles and everything. And when we were talking about Play Story and everything, immediately this movie came to mind. So
cool.
I wanted to talk about it at some point. So I figured now is a good time before we kind of get into, some of the other recommendations I want to do. I'm very interested to see. Have you heard about this movie or watched it?
I've heard about it through you. I remember you mentioned it last year with Crouching Tiger. I have not seen this movie or anything. I don't actually know too much about it, so I'm actually excited to get into this. Yeah.
Nice, yeah. So if you haven't seen it, please check it out. If you're into martial arts and everything. If you're not, I don't think this is going to be the movie that will win you over. Who knows? It could be for some people, but seeing this as a young kid, man, it was just really cool.
Nice.
So I'm kind of excited to see it now that I'm older and see if it'll maybe still hold up.
That's always interesting, huh? That is always interesting to see if movies from your childhood still hold up.
Yeah. And, this side of filmmaking for me is just so fascinating, and seeing the stunt work and everything is just always amazing.
Cool.
I'm
excited to watch this, man.
All right.
All right. Well, good day and good night, mates. Thank you guys for listening.
We'll see you on the next one.